Hi, welcome back to my channel. And this the season to be jolly because Merry Christmas to everybody. And as it's Christmas, as there's a lot of Christmas cheer around, I decided to finally start my end of the year series. Yes, end of the year series is back, but except this time, I'm going to be uploading quite a few videos in the following week. That's the plan. That's the thought process as of now. And let's get started. So cutting right to the topic of this video. This video is going to be my reading stats 2022. Okay, and this is the raw data, everything that I have been doing on my excel right here, and my corporate job has been helping me make these multiple charts that actually accounts for my reading life. And this is how my reading went in 2022. So let's start off with the basics. How many books did I read in 2022? I've read 64 books in 2022 so far. I don't plan to finish any more books this year. So this is going to be most likely the final count unless something changes in like the next 5 days. But let me tell you, it's been a journey because I have been able to read a lot more than expected, although I do have incremental goals on Goodreads, and if you want to know how to meet your Goodreads goals, there's a video down below that you can check out. But the way this goes is, let's start with comparing our fiction and non-fiction. Talking about fiction versus non-fiction, I've actually read 53.1% fiction this year and 46.9% non-fiction this year. And this is not too bad because generally I try to make it 50-50, and this is like quite close. So in numbers, if you want to see, it's 34 books in fiction and 30 books in non-fiction. Pretty good. I am happy with the stats. My goal of reading 50-50 is kind of covered in this one. The next graph here shows the gender that I have read. All the genders are specifically considered here with respect to what the authors identify themselves as. And in this department, I am lacking a bit this because I always aim to read more female authors or people who identify as female on a frequent basis. But this time around, it's been a bit here and there because I've read again 46.9% female authors and 53.1% male authors. So this again gives us a statistic of 34 male authors and 30 female authors. I do need to improve on this. I do need to see how can I get this to equal next year, or maybe read more female authors next year. It is a plan I have in my head, but not much pressure. An interesting thing to add here is that I have actually hardly read any non-binary people in this particular list, and that makes me wonder why. I'm thinking why, because I do know like couple of authors that I was planning to read this year who are non-binary, but unfortunately I don't think I did that. But yeah, on to 2023 for improvements in this particular plan. So moving to the next section, this talks about the ethnicity of the authors. And for me, with respect to ethnicity of the authors, I do tend to read more Global West and more Indian books as compared to any other authors. If I would have to read something that would be a very obscure translation or something, I would really need a project for it. So generally I do not put that much effort, but what I try to do is read a lot of non-fiction or fiction books written by Indians, and then as and when like I get books on Libby, I end up reading books by Americans as well. So as you can see, 37.5% of the authors have been American. That's 24 books by American authors, 19 books by Indian authors. There's been there's Russian, there's Turkish, there's a Chilean as well for some reason. I don't know which Chilean author did I read. I don't remember. There are 5 British authors as well in this list. But one of the main reasons why Americans dominate this list, from what I understand, is because I also read for the BookTube prize, which is a very US-centric prize and a very a North American prize, you can say. And it's not like I don't enjoy reading for the prize. I absolutely enjoy reading for the prize. I absolutely love, discovering new books with the prize, because that's how I've read so many books. But yeah, this gets me to the race of the authors that are there in this list, right? And interestingly, 42.2% of those authors are white. 12.5% of those authors are black. South Asian authors of South Asian descent are 29.7%. Then we also have West Asian. So by West Asian, what I mean is someone from the Gulf, or someone from the western part of Asia. Then of course there are Asian authors, and I think Asian authors. There's Native American as well. Surprisingly, in this particular list, there's Hispanic as well. So overall, yeah, what I want to really consciously do is read less white authors next year. And again, it's not that I have anything against them. It's just that I want to read more own voices books in the future, and race is an account of it, because last year, I remember in 2021, I read more of South Asian and black authors and less of white authors. But this time, the things have turned a little bit. And this is the reason why I like looking at my stats, because at least I know what should I do, what areas of improvement are required, and what should I consciously do for my reading. The next pie chart is that of a translation, yes or no. I am not a person who reads a lot of translated books, and I wish to read more translated books, but I generally don't, because I tend to read more non-fiction over fiction. So whenever I select like a non-fiction book, it's generally not translated. But in translation, I have only read, how much is this? Indian translation, yes, no. It's 3.1% of international translation and 4.7% of Indian translation. So basically, what this means is that out of the 64 books I've read, 59 of them are not translated, and only 5 books out of the 64 are actually translations. And that gets me to a very interesting count and like chart, and that is the source that I have read using. And as expected, Libby, 37.5% of my reading happens via audiobooks on Libby. And then it is followed by owned on shelf. So owned on shelf simply means books that I own on my shelf. And then that is followed by owned on Kindle. So I own like a lot of books on Kindle, and it's followed by that. And then at last comes Audible, because Audible works on a credit system, as you're aware. So I may not have like a lot of credits at one point of time to buy a lot of books. So generally, I rely on Libby, and I rely on books that are owned on my shelf. And that gets me to the next bar graph, and this is the number of books read in a particular month. And this is very interesting, because I read a lot when I'm on vacation, and generally when it's the start of the year. So as you can see, Jan, August and September are books when I've read 7 books each, because it's between 6 and 8. February is the month I've read the least books. That is, I've read three books, and that's actually pretty less. May, where I've read 6 books, as you can see. And yeah, pretty interesting graph. I think I'm totally in agreement with this. And there are tough months, there are easy months, and especially when I'm on vacation, I can read a hell lot more than on a work day. And that gets me to my last pie chart, and that is the NPS attribute. And if you do not know what NPS is, NPS is basically Net Promoter Score, that is used in a corporate setup to estimate customer satisfaction. And I do the same thing for books. Yes, I know. I mean, it works like magic, because although a book is maybe 4, I may not be rating, a book as a promoter. A promoter is basically a book that I would actively recommend to people, like, although I liked it. So an NPS becomes so the NPS becomes a more prominent way of judging whether I would recommend a book to you or not. And I keep this for my own reference, and this helps me during the videos and recommendations as well, right? So 60.9% of the books that I read, that is 39 books of promoters, 18 books, 28.1% books were neutral. So this is generally books between 3 and 4 stars, or books that are 3 stars. And then there are 7 books, 10.9% detractors, books that I would not recommend anybody, and I would just not talk about them at all in a positive light. So just before we wrap up, I want to quickly show you another place where I love to check my stats, and for me that is Storygraph. And the first one that I really like is the mood of the books that I've read. And as you can see, I have read a lot of emotional books. So that orange thing that you see is emotional in the pie chart. And I have also read a lot of reflective books, and 29 reflective books, 26 emotional books, 21 informative books, of course, attributed to non-fiction, 16 dark books, 13 challenging, 12 tens, 11 mysterious. So I'm just going, in the order of the pie chart clockwise, and it's very interesting to see this. So every time you read a book, you can get onto Storygraph, and when you're adding the review, they ask you to actually tick or select what the book made you feel and how do you think the book was, and these are the adjectives that you need to tag the book with. So absolutely love this graph. I'm just putting it here so that you know that this is a statistic. And the next statistic I love is the genres, because keeping track of genres on an Excel sheet is crazy. So these are more like subgenres, and as you can see, I have read a lot of literary, history, and books with LGBTQIA plus themes, which is again an amazing thing, because this is my aim. This has always been my aim: reading more literary fiction, reading more historical fiction, reading more books from the spectrum, reading contemporary books as well. So absolutely glad with this statistic as well. And another thing that I really like is most read authors, and for me this has to be Lucy Foley, because I read 3 books of hers. I just discovered Lucy Foley this year, and I read like multiple books of hers back to back because I was in a reading slump, and I enjoyed all of them. And then talking about number of books to number of pages, it is interesting because it's a bit difficult to make this graph out, but it says that I've read 21,064 pages. So this also includes books that I read on audio, because I do not do that separation of audiobook or anything on this platform. But it feels good to know that yes, I've read 21,064 pages in 2022. And that being said, the next one is star ratings. So most of my star ratings are generally, I would say, generally my star ratings are good enough, and I pick books which I like. So generally they end up in the 4-star range, and as you can see, it's ended up in the 4-star range. So yes, that's it. This is it for the video. I hope it gave you some insights. If you want to know more on how to make this Excel sheet and how have I designed it, please let me know, and then maybe I can make a video on it. Basically, the OG person who makes such a spread is actually Smriti from Santri. So I have taken some things from her, added some of my own things in this, and then accordingly made this spreadsheet customizable to me. So yeah, we can talk about it in a future video, maybe in Jan, maybe in Feb, but let me know if you want to know more about it. But this is it. This is for the stats. Thank you for watching. Bye.